He talks about the idea that you have a living sacrifice, which is completely, this is an oxymoron, right? This is like sacrifices were dead. That's what a sacrifice is. If you go to a culture, like you go to ancient culture, they would slit the throat of a cow or whatever, and then it bleeds out on the altar, and like it's brutal. You just slaughter. Like if you live back in ancient times, the dead animals everywhere, right? You just, and those of you who are like, some of us are like, oh gosh, slitting the throat. Why do you have to say that image in my head? Listen, any farmers in here? Raise your hand if you're a farmer, right? Like it's brutal. It's brutal, man. Nature is brutal. My buddy the other day is like, dude, it's rough. He's like, I had to kill this chicken. He's like, I put it in this little thing and it was upside down. I slit its throat and I walked away for an hour and I did chores. I came back and the thing was still like, oh, no, God, it's still alive. He's like, I didn't know what to do. I get this, goof, goof. It's true what they say. You run around like a chicken with his head cut off. They just run around for like an hour. But so that's what the image of a sacrifice is. The thing dies. Paul has this weird thing where he goes, I want you to be a living sacrifice. I want you to be fully alive and passionate about what you're doing. He says, what does that look like? First word, holy. What does that word mean? It means set apart, different. Set apart from the world, right? Do you look any different from the world around you? Does your life, do you spend money different, use your body different, watch different things, listen? Are you the exact same? Are you a Christianized version of what you already were and what you are determined to remain anyway? Or are you someone going, I gotta like live a life that's vastly different? Now, I don't mean by that what kind of the classic kind of 90s, like my wife grew up in a church setting, in a home where like how many of you grew up in like a pretty conservative Christian home? Raise your hand. So you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like she couldn't watch Care Bears, okay, or My Little Pony or anything. Because it was like, well, there's magic in there and Gargamel's gonna get you. And they couldn't listen to, secular music because that was from the devil. And if you had a Kiss album, Kiss, don't you know what Kiss means? Kids in Satan's service. And so you got to come and you burn your DVDs and your CDs, offer it up to the Lord. I'm going to bring my secular CDs and I'm going to burn them. And then that didn't mean you loved and treasured Jesus more. It just meant you got rid of good music and traded it for awful. Right? You traded good movies for Left Behind. Right? The guy disappears and he's shaving and he gets raptured and the shaver's like, she's like, I still have that. It's a nightmare. It's a Christian nightmare. Because here's the thing, just getting rid of all that stuff doesn't mean you're gonna love Jesus more. You could get rid of every secular CD and still die and go to hell. That's the problem. And Jesus addressed this very issue in Matthew 23. And he looked at all these Pharisees who were doing exactly that. Making sure they burned their Kiss t-shirts, brought their CDs to the town square and burned them and looked really righteous. And Jesus walks in, he's like, you know what you guys are doing? You're like a whitewashed tomb. On the outside, you look really good, but on the inside, you are full of dead men's bones. That's what he says. Because all of these families, and Aaron's family was great. They would be super generous and love the poor and all that. But there's a lot of families who would burn all those CDs and never love the poor. And they weren't doing what the Bible, because Jesus in that sermon goes, here's what you've done. You've done all these external things, but you've missed the bigger issues of justice and mercy. That's what he says. You've missed justice in your life, but don't worry, you don't have any secular CDs. You've missed the point.